Good evening, everyone. You ever sat quiet in the dark, waiting on someone else's light to show you the way? Waiting on a word, a nod, a smile, something to tell you you're enough, you're worthy, you're loved? We all have. But let me tell you something that may shake you a little. You don't need nobody to validate your soul. You were whole when you got here. You were already wrapped in glory when you took your first breath. See, life will fool you if you let it. It'll make you believe that your joy is buried in someone else's pocket, that your peace is locked in somebody's hands, that your worth must be spoken to you by lips that ain't your own. Baby, that's not truth. That's a trick. A trick to keep you small, keep you soft, keep you reaching for love that should have been blooming in your own chest. You better rise. You better look in the mirror and recognize the wonder. You got thunder in your voice and rivers in your veins. You were never meant to shrink to fit into another person's vision of enough. You weren't made to chase after affections that run hot and cold. You weren't built to beg. Your peace should never be a product of someone else's presence. Let that sink in. Deep, not just in your mind, but in your spirit. Because too often we give people power they never earn. We hand them the reins to our joy, our calm, our sense of self. And we wait on their words, their touch, their mood to decide how we'll feel that day. That's not love. That's not connection. That's captivity dressed up in the costume of affection. See, when your peace depends on somebody else showing up, speaking right, staying consistent, you place your soul on shaky ground. And it don't take much for shaky ground to split. One wrong word, one missed call, one forgotten moment, and suddenly your world trembles. You find yourself questioning your worth, doubting your light, rearranging your truth to fit into someone else's silence. You turn into a shadow of yourself, following people around like your heart can't beat without their rhythm. That's no way to live. You were never meant to be that fragile. You were never meant to fall apart every time someone else pulls away. I know. The world teaches us otherwise. It tells us that love should consume, that closeness should overwhelm, that needing someone is the same as loving them. But love is not a cage, and dependency is not devotion. You can love deeply and still remain rooted in yourself. You can care fully without losing your footing every time someone shifts their energy. The truth is, people change. Their seasons come and go, and not everyone will be able to carry you through all of yours. That doesn't make them bad, it just makes them human. And you've got to be built for more than the rise and fall of another person's emotion. You've got to be anchored in your own center, steady even when others are unsteady, calm even when others bring chaos. There is power in being your own peace. There is freedom in not flinching every time someone else walks away. Imagine waking up and knowing your joy is intact, no matter who calls or doesn't, no matter who texts back, no matter who stays or leaves. That's not coldness. That's clarity. That's strength. That's you reclaiming your soul from hands that were never meant to hold it in the first place. You've got to stop tying your happiness to the presence of people who don't even know the weight they're carrying. It's not fair to them, and it's not fair to you. You deserve to be loved without having to collapse when you're not. You deserve to feel worthy even when no one's watching, because your value isn't situational, it isn't temporary, it isn't fragile. It is yours always. Don't make peace a visitor that only shows up when certain people are around. Don't make your joy a guest in someone else's house. Build it into your bones. Stitch it into your silence. Let it echo when you're alone. Let it live in your breath, not in their approval. You are not hard to love, but your love should not come at the cost of losing yourself. Not now, not ever. So take a step back and ask yourself, if they leave, will you still stand? If they stay silent, will you still speak kindness over your own life? If they never say another sweet word, will you still look in the mirror and see someone worthy? Because that is the real work. Finding wholeness inside, not because someone gave it to you, but because you finally stopped asking them to. You looked inward and realized you've been the source all along. And once you taste that kind of peace, the kind that isn't borrowed or begged for, you won't ever give it up again. Hold yourself sacred. You are not made to beg for what you already are. Emotional independence is not selfish, it is sacred. It is a quiet kind of strength, one that doesn't always get applause, but carries you through the storms without shaking. And too often, people mistake it for coldness, for being distant, for being too strong, too guarded, too much. But don't let that fool you. There is nothing selfish about learning to be the keeper of your own heart. There is nothing wrong with choosing not to hand your emotions to others like fragile glass and hoping they don't drop them. We live in a world that romanticizes dependence, songs, stories, even the way we speak. They tell us that real love is needing someone, that devotion is measured in how much you can't live without them. But that's not love, that's bondage. Real love is not needing someone to hold you up. It's standing tall beside them, hand in hand, not leaning so hard that if they move, you fall. When you are emotionally dependent, your well-being becomes a reflection of someone else's behavior. If they're happy, you're happy. If they're cold, you're shattered. If they walk away, you crumble like sand. That's not love. They're surrendering your identity. And you were never meant to dissolve into someone else's moods or movements. You were meant to stand whole, to feel love, yes, to share space, yes, but not to disappear in the process. See, there's something sacred about knowing how to sit with yourself and still feel complete, about looking around a quiet room with no one else there and feeling peace instead of panic. That kind of strength isn't loud. It doesn't need to prove itself. It just is. And it's not about pushing people away or pretending you don't need anyone. It's about not needing someone to fill a space they didn't create. It's about understanding that your emotions are yours. They're not someone else's responsibility to manage, to fix, or to soothe. When you're sad, it's okay to cry. When you're hurting, it's okay to seek comfort. But don't let your healing hinge on another person's ability to show up. People fail, people forget, people leave. But your peace should remain. And let me be clear, emotional independence does not mean isolation. It doesn't mean walking through life alone or refusing love when it comes. It means that when love comes, you welcome it with open arms, not with shackles. You don't bind it to your happiness. You don't make it your oxygen. You simply let it be what it is. Beautiful, meaningful, but not the source of your existence. You must understand the power of being able to feel joy that no one gave you. The beauty of laughing on your own terms. The freedom of not needing anyone to tell you who you are because you already know. That is sacred. That is yours. And when you reach that place, you stop chasing people. You stop begging for love in the corners of other people's lives. You stop shrinking to be held because you no longer need to be completed, only celebrated. There's a quiet fire that burns in people who know how to love without losing themselves, who can be present in relationships but never lost in them, who can give everything and still remain whole. That kind of love, that kind of living, it's not selfish. It's salvation. It saves you from clinging to what was never meant to carry your soul. So no, emotional independence isn't cold. It isn't distant. It's sacred because it protects the most sacred thing you've got, your spirit, your wholeness, your truth. And once you learn how to stand in that space, you won't settle for love that demands your silence. You won't tolerate peace that requires performance. You'll choose you, not out of pride, but out of deep, reverent self-respect. And there is nothing more sacred than that. You are not a half waiting for someone to make you whole. That idea that you are incomplete, unfinished, broken without someone else is one of the deepest lies you've ever been told. It's wrapped in pretty words and packages romance, but it's poison, soft and sweet. Because the moment you believe you're only half, you begin searching for your missing piece in every pair of arms that holds you. And too often those arms drop you. You came into this world whole. No one needed to finish you. You weren't sent here searching. You were sent here shining. But somewhere along the way, someone told you that love had to be about completion, that you needed someone to fix you, that being alone meant being lacking. So you started to wait for someone to choose you, to see you, to rescue you from the mirror you didn't know how to love. But what if I told you that your reflection was never broken? What if I told you that what you've been calling missing was never lost, just hidden beneath all the ways you tried to twist yourself into someone else's idea of enough? We've been taught to measure ourselves by our ability to be loved by others. That if someone doesn't want you, you must be unworthy. If someone leaves, you must be lacking. But love that comes to complete you will always cost you your freedom, because to be completed by someone else means you must remain broken until they arrive. And I promise you, that is not love. That is dependence dressed as desire. You deserve more than that. You deserve to know the power of standing in your fullness and saying, I am already whole. Not waiting to be chosen, but choosing yourself daily. Not begging for attention, but honoring your own presence. Not shrinking for closeness, but expanding in truth, because when you believe you're just a half, you settle. You shrink to fit inside someone else's idea of love. You hold back your light so they don't feel blinded by your brilliance. You apologize for your needs, your voice, your dreams, all because you think you're asking for too much when really you were just asking someone to meet you where you already are. Don't do that to yourself. Don't make yourself small just to feel held. Being whole doesn't mean you don't need people. It doesn't mean you walk through life without companionship or care. It means you don't depend on others to tell you who you are. You don't wait for someone to hand you your worth. You don't collapse when someone walks away because you understand your foundation is built on deeper ground. Love should never arrive to patch your wounds or fill your silence. Love should meet you in your healing, walk beside you in your quiet, celebrate you in your growth. Anything less is a transaction, not a connection. Anything less will leave you feeling emptier than before. There is a stillness that comes when you realize you are not waiting anymore. You're not watching the door, hoping someone will enter and bring you peace. You're not craving the kind of love that costs you your self-respect. Instead, you wake up and say, this life, this body, this heart, it's enough. I am enough. And from that space, love becomes a gift, not a necessity. When you stop seeing yourself as a half, you stop settling for fractions. You stop clinging to people who only offer pieces of themselves. You begin to require love that sees you clearly, not because you need it, but because you deserve it. So remind yourself as often as you must, you are not a puzzle waiting to be solved. You are not a project. You are not a space waiting to be filled. You are the whole story, the full song, the entire fire. Walk like it, speak like it, live like it. You were never waiting to be completed. You were waiting to remember. Clinging to others for validation will bury your own voice. And it happens so quietly, so gently, you almost don't notice it. At first, it feels like love, like connection. You ask for their thoughts, you wait for their praise. You lean on their approval like it's the wind holding you up. But little by little, their opinion becomes your mirror, and your voice, your own sense of knowing, begins to dim beneath the weight of needing to be seen through someone else's eyes. You were never meant to be defined by another's gaze. Your worth, your beauty, your brilliance, none of that is up for debate. But when you depend on someone to affirm it for you, when you keep reaching for their nod just to feel like you matter, you start handing away the most sacred part of yourself, your inner truth, the part that knows you even when no one else claps. And when you give that away, even in pieces, you begin to lose touch with your own direction. You start doubting your instincts, second-guessing your choices, questioning your value every time someone else is silent or unapproving. You adjust your light so it doesn't shine too bright. You shrink your laugh so it doesn't take up too much space. You become a reflection of their comfort instead of a celebration of your truth. That's not connection. That's captivity. You were not born to be someone's echo. You were not meant to build your identity around someone else's comfort zone. You have a voice, strong, wild, sacred. And when you bury it under the weight of someone else's validation, you begin to forget how it sounds. And maybe you've been praised for it. Maybe people called you easy, loyal, sweet because you never rocked the boat. You became so good at reading the room, at adjusting to their moods, that you forgot how to read yourself. That's not love. That's a performance. And you weren't made to be a performer in your own life. It's okay to want connection. It's human to seek understanding. But the moment your peace, your confidence, your self-worth depends on how someone else sees you, you're no longer standing in your power. You're waiting in their shadow. There will be days when people don't see your beauty, days when they're too wrapped up in their own reflection to notice your light. And if your validation lives in their gaze, you'll spend those days in darkness questioning your place. But if your validation lives within you, rooted in something deeper, older, eternal, you'll rise anyway. You'll love yourself anyway. That's where freedom lives. You have to stop asking people to give you what you already carry. Stop holding your breath, waiting on applause. Stop bending yourself into shapes that make others comfortable but leave you confused. You deserve to be whole without someone else's permission. You deserve to walk through this world without having to ask, am I enough? Because you are. And your voice, it deserves to be heard, even when no one is listening, even when it shakes, even when it's not popular. Speak it anyway. Honor it anyway. Trust it anyway. You don't need everyone to agree with you to be right for yourself. You don't need everyone to choose you to be worth choosing. You don't need constant affirmation to be beautiful. Some of the most powerful growth you'll ever do will happen in silence, when no one is clapping, when no one is looking. That's when you learn to clap for yourself. That's when your voice rises from within, no longer needing to be echoed to feel real. And once you begin to validate your own being, you'll stop begging for scraps from those who never learned how to value anything beyond themselves. You'll stop over-explaining your worth. You'll stop performing, and instead you'll stand, you'll speak, and you'll remember. Your voice was never meant to be buried. The moment you stop seeking permission to feel worthy, you begin to rise. It's that simple, and it's that sacred. There is no form to fill, no approval to wait on, no applause required, but we forget. We get caught up in the eyes of others, measuring our reflection by how they respond to it. We watch their reactions like mirrors, waiting for their gaze to soften before we feel beautiful, waiting for their words to affirm us before we feel valuable. We hand them the keys to our confidence and wait at the door, hoping they'll let us in. But baby, that door opens from the inside. You don't need anyone to tell you that you're enough before you start acting like you are. You don't need anyone's permission to stand tall, to take up space, to speak with a voice that doesn't apologize for its echo. You've been waiting too long, waiting for someone to call you worthy, waiting for the right love, the right moment, the right person to point at you and say you matter. But let me tell you, the only person who needs to say that is you, because worthiness was never meant to be earned. It was already yours. You were born with it. It's stitched into your breath, your bones, your being. But the world will try to teach you otherwise. It'll say you've got to look a certain way, move a certain way, be soft enough not to offend, quiet enough to not take up too much room, agreeable enough to be liked. And if you keep chasing their version of worthy, you'll lose your own. You'll end up performing a life that was never yours to begin with. When you stop seeking permission, something powerful begins to happen. You start moving from your truth instead of from their expectations. You start trusting your own eyes, your own heart, your own rhythm. You stop asking, is this okay? And you start saying, this is me. That shift is not always loud. Sometimes it's just a moment of clarity, a deep breath that says, I'm done waiting. And from that breath, you begin to rise. You rise from the places where you once begged. You rise from the habits that kept you small. You rise from the lies you told yourself to make others comfortable. Because now you understand, if someone can give you worth with their words, they can take it away with their silence. And that is too dangerous a game to play. So many people walk through life chasing love, chasing attention, chasing likes and praise and nods, hoping that all of it will build something steady inside. But the truth is, nothing out there can fill the place you've emptied by doubting your own enoughness. That space can only be filled by you, by your own decision to stop shrinking, to stop waiting, to stop tying your self-respect to someone else's approval. You don't need to be chosen to be valuable. You don't need to be praised to have purpose. And you sure don't need to be liked by everyone to love yourself without apology. When you begin to honor your worth from within, you start building a foundation that doesn't shake every time someone walks in or out of your life. You start showing up for yourself in ways that no one else can. You start standing in rooms that once made you question yourself. And instead of asking if you belong, you begin to realize the room was lucky you walked in. That's the power of self-declared worth. It's not arrogance. It's not ego. It's knowing deep down in your bones that your value isn't a question. It's a fact. So stop waiting to be told you're enough. Say it. Say it like a truth. You don't need anyone to believe but you. Because the day you stop seeking permission is the day you start walking in your power, unshaken, unbent, unashamed. And that's the day you begin to rise. Freedom begins where fear of abandonment ends. That kind of fear, deep, quiet, and persistent, will make you a prisoner in your own life. It'll have you holding on too tightly, dimming your light so someone doesn't walk away, softening your truth so someone stays just a little longer, and all the while a part of you knows you are not being loved, you are being tolerated. You are not being seen, you are being managed. That's not connection, that's survival. When you live in fear of being abandoned, you will abandon yourself first. That's the heartbreak nobody talks about. You'll silence your needs, suppress your dreams, and twist yourself into someone else's comfort just to avoid being left. You start thinking, if I'm easy enough, small enough, selfless enough, maybe they'll stay. And even if they do, you're not whole anymore. You've traded pieces of yourself for presence, thinking that company, no matter how careless, is better than solitude. But real love doesn't thrive in fear. It doesn't ask you to shrink. It doesn't demand you be less so it can be more. Love, true love, is not built on the edge of walking away. It's built in the confidence that even if someone leaves, you remain. And that's the shift. You don't lose your value because someone decides to go. You don't stop being whole because someone stops choosing you. But fear will make you forget. Fear will convince you that without them you are nothing. Fear will whisper that being left is a sign you were never enough. But fear lies. What's real is this: when you stop fearing abandonment, you start showing up fully. You stop editing yourself to be digestible. You stop rehearsing your emotions to be less needy. You begin to exist in truth, and from that place, the people who are meant to love you will recognize you're not the version of you built to avoid rejection, but the version of you built to avoid rejection, but the version of you built to avoid rejection, but the version of you built. But you can't reach that freedom until you face the fear. You have to ask yourself, what am I so afraid will happen if they walk away? Will I disappear? Will I dissolve? Or will I perhaps for the first time meet the version of me that isn't shaped by staying small, the version that can sit in an empty room and still feel full? It's not easy. That fear was planted early, maybe when someone you loved left without warning, maybe when love was withheld unless you performed. Maybe when silence replaced affection and you learned to chase validation just to feel safe. So now even the idea of someone turning away feels like a threat to your identity. But here's the truth: no one can take from you what you refuse to surrender. No one can define you unless you hand them the pen. So reclaim the story. Decide today that you are not afraid to be alone with your truth, that you are not afraid to lose people who only stayed because you bent yourself backward to keep them. That your peace matters more than proximity, that love that asks you to live in fear is not love at all, it is control. And when that fear begins to fade, so does the desperation. You stop grasping, you stop begging, you stop contorting, you begin to breathe deeper, you begin to stand taller, you begin to say, if you go, I'll grieve, but I won't collapse. I'll mourn, but I won't vanish. I'll miss you, maybe even love you, but I will not lose myself over you. That is freedom, because once you're no longer afraid of being left, you stop compromising to be kept. You stop apologizing for your presence. You stop measuring your worth by who stays. Instead, you measure it by your ability to stay with yourself. And let me tell you, there is no power greater than being able to look in the mirror, hold your own gaze, and know, even if they walk away, I won't walk out on myself. Healing begins the moment you choose yourself over their comfort. Not when they apologize, not when they come back, not when they finally see your worth. No, it begins when you finally stop twisting yourself into a version that fits into their idea of enough. Healing begins the day you say, I matter more than how they feel about me. That choice, that shift is quiet at first. It starts small in the middle of a conversation where you laugh at the joke that cuts too deep, or when you stop chasing a response that never comes. You feel it when you decide not to text first this time, when you don't explain yourself just to keep the peace. You notice it when you stop shrinking in rooms you used to feel invisible in. That's not coldness, that's healing. You've been taught that being chosen is the highest honor, that someone staying is the ultimate win, but sometimes staying costs you everything. Your voice, your peace, your self-respect. And that's too high a price to pay for company that only shows up halfway. You don't heal by clinging. You heal by releasing what asks you to betray yourself just to keep it. And let's tell the truth, choosing yourself doesn't always feel like freedom at first. Sometimes it feels like grief. Because when you finally stop putting someone else's needs above your own, you may lose them. And that loss, as painful as it is, creates space for you to return to yourself, for you to hear your own voice again, for you to remember that your needs are not burdens, your emotions are not inconveniences, and your presence does not require permission. It takes courage to choose yourself in a world that constantly tells you to be smaller, quieter, more pleasing. It takes strength to walk away from someone you love because you realize that loving them was slowly killing your spirit. But you can't heal in the same place that hurt you. You can't grow in the soil that taught you to doubt your roots. So when you leave, even if your heart aches, you are not breaking, you're blooming. Choosing yourself means honoring your boundaries even when they push people away. It means listening to your intuition even when others call you dramatic. It means protecting your peace even if they don't understand, because you finally realize that your healing is not up for negotiation, that your softness is not meant to be stepped on, that your love is not a reward for someone who only shows up when it's convenient. And when you begin to live from that truth, you start to attract a different kind of connection, one that doesn't require performance, one that meets you in your fullness, not your fragments. One that doesn't run when your soul speaks honestly, but even before those connections arrive, you've already won because you've finally stopped abandoning yourself. That's what healing looks like. Not perfection, not constant peace, but presence, awareness, integrity. You still feel the pull to please, the urge to fix, the ache to chase, but now you pause, you breathe. You choose. You return to yourself again and again until it becomes the only place you call home. And the most beautiful part, the more you choose yourself, the less you tolerate anything that asks. You stop over-explaining, overextending, overcompensating. You simply exist, rooted, clear, whole. You stop seeking closure from people who never offered it. You stop needing validation from those who never saw you. You stop hoping that one day they'll finally understand what you were trying so hard to give, because now you understand it for yourself. You are not made to be an option. You were not made to set yourself on fire just to keep others warm. You were made to be chosen first and always by you. As we close this conversation, remember that the power to stand in your own light, to honor your worth, and to choose yourself over and over again is already within you. You are not a reflection of others, nor are you a half waiting to be completed. You are whole. You are enough. The moment you stop depending on others to define your value is the moment you begin to reclaim your true strength. Don't ever forget, your peace, your voice, your presence are sacred, and you have the power to protect them. Keep choosing yourself. Keep walking in your truth. The world will try to tell you otherwise, but know that you are more than enough exactly as you are. Thank you for allowing me to share this with you today. I wish you all the strength and clarity as you continue on your journey of healing and self-empowerment. Good luck. And may your path be filled with love, light, and the courage to be fully yourself.